Alright, I wanted to take just a few moments and show you all how the mode selections and the UI customization works on the 3XML module. What I attempted to do here was make it so that someone with no programming experience, doesn't know C, doesn't know BASIC or Pascal or Java or anything else for that matter, would be able to define their own custom modes and set up their module to work just the way they want it to. This here in front of me is a 3XML module. It's mounted just to a copper heatsink off of a CPU, just so that it has something to dissipate some heat into. I didn't want to put this inside of anything because I want you all to be able to see exactly what's going on here. Right now I have 12 volts hooked up to ground and VIN using just some regular old test probes, but normally this would be hardwired to batteries and a tail cap switch. And what we have here is a program which you can run on your PC right here, called the BLM Module Designer. We're going to go ahead and launch that, and I'll bring it a little bit better into view here. And this is all you need to be able to use, really, in order to define your own custom modes. It's going to set up all the programming options for you. So the first thing we have here is mode memory. What this defines is whether the module will remember the last mode you were on before power off and start back there, or whether it will always start at the beginning of your mode list. I personally happen to like no mode memory because that way I always know where it's going to start up at, and I usually define that as a fairly dim setting so that it doesn't shock me, but you can set it up however you may like. So I'm going to leave mode memory off, and then just for this demonstration I'm going to set up 4 different modes. So we'll pick 4 there, and you'll see now we're going to get 4 tabs. We'll take just a second. It's setting up some options, and there we go. Mode 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can set up to 16 modes on the 3XML module. The next option we have is low voltage cutoff. You can set that to whatever suits your purposes and suits the number of batteries that you're going to be using. But I'll assume just for a moment that we're going to go with 3 18650 or 26650 lithium cells, and let's say just for a moment that I want the low voltage cutoff to happen around 3.3 volts on each of them, or 9.9 volts total. So we can go ahead and pull this down, and you can see we're getting close to 9 volts, a little more than 9 volts. There's about 9.3 volts. 9.285. So we'll leave that setting. And what that's going to do when it gets here is it's not going to stop the module from operating, but the module will operate in a reduced brightness mode, where all of your settings still keep their same style of operation, but their max brightness is limited to whatever we set here. And this is a value from 0 to 255, basically percentages, and what I'm going to do is set this to about 100 or thereabouts. That's fine. And what this means is that 105 of 255 total will be my brightness, so a little more than a third of max brightness will be the max I can get to once low voltage comes into effect. So as soon as the batteries get below 9.285 volts, the maximum brightness is going to be about a third. And then we also have this over temp threshold, which can be set to quite a few different values, from 40 degrees C up to 100 degrees C, and this really depends on your comfort level. The module is perfectly safe at 100 degrees C, but your hands probably aren't. So you want to pick something that is comfortable for you. If this is going to be something that you don't physically touch, then 100 degrees C is fine. But if you're going to be handling this and dissipating some of this heat into your hand, you're going to want a much lower setting. So I'm going to leave this at 40 degrees C. And again, that high temperature threshold won't stop the module from operating, but what it will do is slowly back off on the brightness in order to maintain that maximum of 40 degrees C. And really, the 40 degrees C is where the thermal limiting begins. There's about a 5 degrees C set of hysteresis in there, which means that this may go up to about 45 degrees C at absolute max. So that's pretty good. I like that. And now we'll go set up our actual modes. We'll go to mode 1, and you can see we have different types here that we can choose for modes. There's instant, ramp, blinking, pattern, infinite, and infinite lock. And I'll give you a brief description, although there is some text over here that shows up when you select each one of them and kind of gives you a description of what they do. But instant to constant allows you to set a brightness level, and it will instantly jump to that level. It's a very fast change. Some people refer to it as a tactical mode change. You could go from very dim to very bright, or very bright to very dim instantly. Ramping to constant brightness, again, we pick a brightness level that we want to get to, but when we change to this mode, instead of just snapping to that brightness level, it'll gradually move from wherever it's at to that new level using a curve, and it's very less obnoxious. It doesn't hit you quite so hard. I prefer it for a regular around the house flashlight because you don't get that sudden jolt of brightness. Then we have blinking, which is fairly self-explanatory. It'll blink the LED using a brightness that you select and a speed of repetition that you select. Pattern allows for very complex patterns to be defined. As we go along here, I'm going to define a pattern, and you'll see that further, but suffice it to say it allows for very complex things, Morse code or any type of a pattern to be defined that will be played out using the brightness of the LEDs. And then we have infinite and infinite lock. Now infinite, what this is going to do when you switch to this mode is it's slowly going to ramp the brightness from completely dim off to maximum brightness, and it's going to do that slowly enough that you can watch it, and when it gets to a level that you're happy with, you can then trigger a mode change, just like you would to go from any mode to any other mode, and it will lock in that brightness. So it's completely infinite, and it allows you to set any brightness you want at any time you want. Once again, we're going to set that mode so that you can see how that operates. And then infinite lock is really only here to be the mode that you switch to in order to lock in that brightness that you just selected using the infinite adjust. So let's go ahead and set up these 4 modes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a ramp to constant brightness, and I'm going to say generate the code for that. And what it's asking me here is how bright do you want to be. The values are from 1 to 1023, and again, that's you can think of it kind of like a percentage. Something divided by 1023 gives you your percentage of maximum. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to maximum brightness. I'm going to type in 1023. I'm going to press OK, and it's hard to see, but it actually generated a little bit of code down here. And we're done with mode 1. So we'll go to mode 2 now. And for this one, I'm going to pick blinking. Sure, why not? And again, we'll say generate the code. And it says, how bright do we want it to blink at? This particular selection is from 1 to 255. But it's the same thing. It's a percentage of full brightness. So 255 would be absolute max brightness. I'm going to set this to about half, 127. And then it says, how fast do you want it to blink? And what you do here is you enter in a value from 1 to 255, and the module will multiply those numbers by 10 milliseconds each. So if we wanted this to blink 10 times per second, that would be roughly 50 millisecond blinks, 50 milliseconds of on, 50 milliseconds of off. So I'm actually going to set it a little slower than that. I'm going to set it at 100 milliseconds per on and off cycle, which would give us 5 blinks per second. And actually thinking about it with this video camera, I may want to set it a little slower than that so that you can actually see it. I'm going to set this to about a second for the blinks, just so that you can actually see it on my video camera. And to do that, a second is 1,000 milliseconds divided by 10 gives me about 100. So I'm going to put the value of 100 in here, which will give me 1 second of on and 1 second of off. And again, I don't know if you can really see it on the video here, but it generated a little bit of code in this box. Now we'll go to mode 3, and we're going to set up a pattern. And you'll see how we can set up very complex patterns here. So we'll say to generate the code, and it actually brings up a new window. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up kind of a cool beacon mode. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say I want full brightness of 255, and again, these values, you can see the maxes and the mins are up here defined for you. And these delays are again multiplied by 10 milliseconds. So I'm going to do 2, which will be 20 milliseconds. And then I'm going to add another step in the pattern. And I'm going to say 0, which will be off. And I'm going to say also 20 milliseconds. And then I'm going to say another step, max brightness, another 20 milliseconds. Then I'm going to say another step, off, another 20 milliseconds. And then I'm going to add another step, and it's going to be max brightness for another 20 milliseconds. And then I'm going to add a delay, 0 brightness for 255, and another step of 0 brightness for 45. So now what this is going to do is it's going to go blink, blink, blink very quickly at max brightness for a very short period of time. 20 millisecond flashes, 20 milliseconds separated. And then it's going to pause with the LEDs off for 255 times 10 milliseconds, which is 2.55 seconds, plus another 45 times 10, or 450 milliseconds, a total of 3 seconds. So we're going to get 3 very, very quick blinks and then 3 seconds of off time. This would make a great beacon mode if you were trying to leave yourself a marker beacon, or if you were trying to, signal for help. And you can see how we could also define SOS as a Morse code pattern, or whatever we wanted to here. You can define very, very complex patterns. So we're done with that one, and we're going to say generate the code, and it generates some code down here. So we're all done there. And then mode 4, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the defaults here, and I'm going to add one more mode. I'm going to make this 5 so that we can do the infinite ramp that I had spoke of. And it'll add another tab here in a moment. Alright, so and you can see it didn't hurt my other defines. Mode 4, we're going to do the infinite, and all we have to do is click generate code. It makes the code for it. And then mode 5 will be the infinite lock. Now infinite lock has got to come right after infinite adjustment. Otherwise, when you select your brightness level in the infinite mode, you don't have anywhere to go to. So we have to always have an infinite lock after an infinite. And that's just the way that it works. We have our infinite adjustment as mode 4, and then our infinite lock as mode 5. And we're done now, so we'll go back to the defaults, and what we're going to do is one more time we're going to hit generate, and it's going to actually generate a whole bunch of code, which includes all of these settings over here and all of our mode selections. And there we go. Now this looks complicated, but it really isn't, and all you really have to do is be able to copy it. So we're just going to pause here for a moment while I'll show you one more step here. In order to define your own modes and program them to your own module, you'll need a pick programmer like a pick kit 3, or even a pick kit 2 will work if you happen to have one. And you're going to need a program from Microchip that is free of charge called MPLab. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up MPLab IDE here, and there it is. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to File, Import, and these files here are included in the firmware that's downloadable on the website. So you don't have to make these or anything like that. These are just simple files that you're going to open up and edit with those values from the other program. So we're going to import this LED single.hex, and then we're going to go up to View, EEPROM, and you'll see right now it's all F's, which to a microcontroller that's as good as being blank. It doesn't mean a lot. It's technically a value of 255, but the microcontroller doesn't really care about it or pay attention to it. And if we were to just program this empty file to the module, it wouldn't even turn on. It wouldn't do anything. We have to define all of these settings in these modes. So what I'm going to do is use these values, wrong program, use these values right here, and they'll fit perfectly into that space above. Now once we run out of things to type, we just leave them at FF, so it means they're not important at all. So we go back over here and just type them in exactly the way we see them, which I'm going to do offline here because I'm already 16 minutes into this video and I'm trying not to make this too entirely long. So I'm going to pause this video just for a moment and I'm going to type in all these values, and then I'll be right back with you. Alright, so I've typed in all those values. It matches the program perfectly, and that is it as far as what we really need to do for typing. So I can close this program right out. It's gone, and I'm left with my configured module here. Now if you're going to program this yourself using a PicKit 2 or a PicKit 3, at this point what you'll do is you'll just go to Programmer and select which programmer you're going to be using, and then program your module. We can go through that in another video sometime, but for right now what I'm going to focus on is if you want us here to program it for you. And what we're going to do is we've configured it all, so we're going to say File, Export, and we're going to leave all of this selected. We're going to hit OK, and then we're going to give it a new name like PPTK module, and hit save. And now you would send that file to us when you purchase your module, and we configure it just like you want it, and it would come in having those exact modes. So that's done. And then if you wanted to program your own, you would go through the programming steps, which is what I'm going to do, and again I'm going to do it offline here real quickly, but we'll see what this module does using those settings in just a moment. Alright, so now the module has been programmed. I used a PicKit 3 with some pogo pins to touch the pads on the module, and you can see up here programming verify has been completed, and this module is now programmed with our mode selections. I've got this business card sitting up here just because it is so bright that it overwhelms the lens on my camera completely, and you won't be able to see very much of anything if I don't do that. So it will work out just fine. You'll still be able to see plenty, I promise. So what we're going to do here is go ahead, and I've got just a switch hooked up, kind of act like a tail cap switch, and we're going to go to the first mode, which if you'll remember we programmed in a slow ramp to maximum brightness. So here's the first tail cap click, and there it is. We're getting brighter and brighter. It's very hard to tell in the video, but what that did is it ramped up to full brightness. That was not just an immediate pop. So that's our max brightness mode. And then our second mode was 1 second on, 1 second off. So I'll go ahead and click the tail cap switch, and I guess it would help if I held everything steady. Alright, starting back over, since we don't have memory, maximum brightness. And then we'll switch again to blinking, 1 second on, 1 second off. And I'm not touching the tail cap switch. This is happening all by itself, just like we programmed it to. Mode 3, we set up a complex pattern with 3 quick blinks and then 3 seconds of off time. So we'll go ahead and click the tail cap switch again. It's probably pretty hard to tell there, but we actually are getting 3 very fast blinks and then 3 seconds of off time. And the last mode, which is kind of the cool mode in my opinion, is the infinite variable brightness. And what that does is we'll go ahead and switch to it, and it very slowly ramps up the brightness, getting brighter and brighter. And when we're happy, we click the tail switch and it locks in that mode. And now we are at the exact brightness that we want. And that's your infinite adjustable brightness mode. I'm going to try to get that one to set at a very low level so you can see how well it works. I'm going to go all the way through the modes again. So there's mode 1, 2, 3, 4, and switch. And you can see, I don't know if you can tell, that the video camera didn't even kind of go into its very, very over bright mode, and I can even take that away and we can still see it. We're set at a pretty low level right now because I clicked the tail switch a second time after entering infinite mode, and I clicked it quite quickly, so we're set at a very low light level right now. You can see I can even get right down here and we can still see the module a bit. So that shows you the mode selections on the 3XML module. Hope you've enjoyed watching.